So, good morning, everyone. This week, you're going to be reading chapters 13 and 14. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about it. You're going to have to read it on your own, but I do want to point out some important details to help you with the short answer response. So, let me start with this information. You may remember me telling you about something Elie Wiesel once said about how studying the Holocaust was like looking up at a night sky filled with stars. The Warsaw Ghetto is one of those stars, and the children who were orphaned would be another star, and the 1.5 million children who died, yet another star. In chapter 13, we have this very important symbol, the carousel, the merry-go-round, the wheel of life. This is symbolic of childhood, and you start to see the tension the Nazis are putting on the lives of the Jews and the Gypsies, particularly the children. Warsaw was a city that had, this is before the war, 375,000 Jewish people living there. It was the second largest Jewish population in the world after New York. After Poland was invaded by the German army on September 28, 1939, German troops entered the city. You may recall the scene in Milkweed when the jackboots paraded into the city, and Misha mistakenly thought that this was a glorious sight. Jews were subject to discrimination after that point. They were attacked on streets. Devout religious Jews, the Hasidic Jews who wore the black hats and the long dark coats, were issued. They were beaten up. They were tortured. They were a very easy target. On October 12th of 1940, on Yom Kippur, which is a very holy and important Jewish holiday, Warsaw Jews were informed that this ghetto was being created and that they would be cut off from the city with a high wall of bricks. Jews were not allowed in public places. They were not allowed to go to restaurants, movies, concerts, parks. They were not allowed to walk on the sidewalk. They were not allowed to attend public school. Businesses were compromised. If you were a teacher, a professor, a doctor, a musician, you were not allowed to continue your practice. Food was scarce, there was no heat, and no electricity. So in chapter 13, Yuri and Misha are walking toward the orphanage, and Misha sees this carousel, and he doesn't really know what it is because he didn't live in a city. And he's tantalized by it, by the beautiful colors, by their decorations, by the music, and he's lured into it. And Yuri tells him, "This is not for you. You can't go here." And of course, Misha disobeys him, and he does go out, and he goes to the carousel. And that's where a child, just another child, says he doesn't have a ticket. And then the man calls him a dirty Jew, and all of these things kind of ensue. And Misha says, "I'm a gypsy." On page 62, there's a description of a golden-haired girl holding her nose, like this, and saying, "Ew, he smells, dirty gypsy, dirty gypsy." And that is an expression of malevolence. This little girl is a perpetrator, and she is repeating, no doubt, things that she has heard about Jews and gypsies. And he ran away. Then he goes to see Dr. Korshak, and he asks Dr. Korshak if the orphans can go on the merry-go-round. I mean, you really see his childhood innocence here. And Dr. Korshak says, no, they don't, but maybe someday. And Misha asks, why? Because they're Jews? And he says, no, because they're children. So children then were an easy target for the Nazis, and Hitler intended to kill all of the children, all the Jewish and Gypsy children in Europe, because he wanted to exterminate the Jewish population. So electricity and food suddenly disappears, and then Misha, he goes out at night to see the to see the carousel again. It's something that attracts him, calls to him, and then he goes over to Dr. Korshak, and he tries to invite Dr. Korshak to bring the children to the merry-go-round, and Dr. Korshak, brings him in and, gives him a place to sleep, and explains that this is something that is just not for him. Now and he calls him a foolish, good-hearted boy. Now this is where the restrictions are starting to get more severe, and there's a contrast in this chapter between the perpetrators, the Nazis, and the benevolence, the altruism of Dr. Korshak. Okay, then chapter 14, we return to the scene. This is winter now. We return to the scene at the merry-go-round, and someone had taken one of the horses off the platform and probably burned it and used it for firewood. And people were blaming it on a Jew. Page 66, find the Jew, people were calling. As I stared at the three horseless hooves, I felt my own anger rising. Find the dirty Jew, the voices called over and over. And I think one of the voices I heard was mine. This really shows you how easy it is to cross over all those parts of the paradigm. You can be a victim, you can be a bystander, and then the next day you could be a perpetrator. And that's what happens here. So, you want to kind of ask yourself, what did the Nazis do to the Jew who stole, the horses? And we don't really know that it was a Jew who did that. Okay, and then on page 67, this is a particularly sad and poignant moment. I did not return to the merry-go-round until the snow was gone and the grass was greening among the stumps. I wondered if the man had melted away like snow. The three hooves were gone from the platform. The only reminder of what had happened was the empty space where the beautiful black horse had been. Otherwise, all was as always. The music was tootling, the ladies were laughing, the children were going round and round. But this was something that was forbidden. Okay, so I'm going to leave you now. Make sure you give chapters 13 and 14 a good read, and I hope I've helped you with information for the first short answer for this week. All right, have a great day, everyone.